So Contender Series week number 7 is going to be taking place next Tuesday, and it is going to be one of the final cards of the season. There's only 4 more cards to go. I believe every single fight has been booked for the rest of the season, and it is a little bit sad that the Contender Series is going to be coming towards an end, but at the same time, it is going to mean that I only need to suffer for 4 more weeks. It does mean that we really need to get it back on track. We don't have much more time to go. I've had 2 cards back-to-back, which have been really bad after I had a fantastic start to the season. And I will be honest with you guys, if this is a bad card, I'm going to be really, really upset. Now, I did have a very busy week this week, which is my prediction video is out a little bit late this week. But I do think that we have locked in, and we have locked in some picks on this card as well. And I even did consult somebody else by the name of Bitsam to give me a second opinion on some of these fights, because I am intrigued to know what he is thinking about when it does come to this card, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and I will admit I have adopted a different strategy when it does come to picking one of the fights, which we will talk about in a moment. Of course, I did put up my article on the We Want Picks website. You can get 10% off that and get access to everything on there if you do use the code ARTEM. It's 10% off your first ever membership. So hopefully we can get back on track, and my UFC predictions will be out probably tomorrow, if not the day after. I do once again need to travel for a prosthodontist appointment away from town. So the first fight of the night is going to be Rafael Tobias taking on Jair de Oliveira, and I have put a lot on the line for this fight. If Rafael Tobias loses this fight to Jair de Oliveira, I will move to Argentina. I will contact my best friend, Martin Pacquiao, who owns Samurai Fight House in Argentina and is the manager of a bunch of Argentinian fighters, and I will begin my own MMA career at light heavyweight. I don't have any grappling experience, but I do have an amateur boxing background. I do have experience in WAKO kickboxing. It is something that could potentially happen, because I watched Jair de Oliveira's fights. I lied. I watched one fight. I could only find one fight. This guy, he loves to yap. He has been on so many podcasts. It is insane. But I was able to watch one fight, and it was this matchup against Adao Yakiao. You couldn't tell who was the better fighter out of the two. I mean, Yakiao just kind of gassed out and gave up. He didn't even really get TKO'd. He just kind of sat down on the ground after round 1 finished, and was just like, okay, I don't want to fight anymore. And that was all I really needed to see. And aside from that, I could not find anything. I did try my best, couldn't find it. So, all I know about Jair de Oliveira is that I don't think that he's that good. Like, he's just a standing striker without really any technique at all. Seems like he might have some BJJ ability because he does have a submission win. But he really, really shouldn't be beating Rafael Tobias. Now, I do have my own sort of things about Tobias that I think can get exposed at the UFC level. In fact, I think will get exposed at the UFC level, such as his tendencies to enter the pocket with his hands in his pants. That is how he got knocked out in his loss to Miguel Porto. He literally walked into the pocket, his hands were by his waist, and of course Porto took that opportunity to win that fight by knockout. And this is a loss that has aged really badly, because Porto lost to Kevin Christian, who's not very good. As you can tell, I am descending into insanity, because my picks have not been good over the last couple of weeks, and it does hurt my feelings. But aside from that, I think Tobias is pretty solid. Like, his striking is good from range. He does crash the pocket way too much. He doesn't have any striking defense at all, which is a bit of a theme on this card, I will admit. But one thing that he's definitely going to have an advantage on over Jair de Oliveira, without any doubt in my mind, is the grappling. I'm pretty confident Tobias is going to be the better grappler. He really should go out there against Jair de Oliveira, take him down, and submit him in round number 1. Now, of course, the KO threat is there, but de Oliveira does hit hard, or at least it looked like he hit hard on the fights that I watched of his. I think Tobias wins the fight. High confidence pick for that one there. Now, Javier Reyes is going to be taking on Justice Torres, and this is where my strategy has changed. Now, of course, if you've watched my videos before, you know that the way that I like to analyze a lot of fights is through comparison, and I actually did watch a lot of Justice Torres fights. He has taken this fight on short notice, and I saw him lose to Cameron Graves, and I do genuinely believe that Cameron Graves and Javier Reyes are like the exact same fighter, copy and pasted. They are both absolutely massive for 145 pounds. They're both BJJ guys, and they're both relatively competent in the striking. And Justice Torres was shut down in that matchup, and that was a 5-round fight. And which, to be fair, the cardio did look good. He did get a takedown and get some wrestling going on towards the end of the matchup. But against Cameron Graves, he did get pressured a lot by Cameron, and ultimately did lose that fight. And I would honestly just say in general, had his entire game shut down by Graves. Now, Justice Torres, he is a guy with a wrestling background. In fact, I would say that he probably is more of a wrestler than anything. I've got the hiccups. But he mostly strikes to win his fights. He mostly boxes. If he can be the guy pressuring forward, he's going to look good, and he's going to get his opponents up against the cage where he's either going to throw combinations or shoot a takedown. He's taken on Javier Reyes, who was actually meant to be an absolute layup for Akaro Brito, but Akaro Brito has had visa issues again, and now Justice Torres is going to be taking him on about a week's notice. Javier Reyes is a very interesting prospect because this is a guy that I had very high hopes for. You can see that he has beaten decent levels of competition. He does have a lot of experience. He's got a pretty good record as well. And against Leon Douglas, he was actually looking pretty good until Leon Douglas did knock him out in the second round. But that kind of is just how Douglas fights, unless Douglas decides to pull the trigger in the first 15 seconds of the matchup like he did on his own Contender Series fight. Against Chris Makate, this fight was at 155 pounds. He was shut down in the striking by Makate, who's actually a wrestler. So that was interesting. The thing about Reyes, to talk about his game, actually, is he is a BJJ guy. And once he does get a takedown, his BJJ is very good. His ability to get to positions is great. The ability to get to choking positions is fantastic as well. And he does have a bit of a submission arsenal to his game. The problem with Reyes is I think that his takedown offense isn't very good. I have seen his takedowns defended many, many times by many, many different opponents kind of throughout this sort of period of time here. And I do believe that Justice Torres' takedown defense should be good enough to defend the takedowns of Reyes. And on the feet, I do think that he can be the better striker than Reyes. Reyes is pretty low volume. He does hit pretty hard. He's a big guy for this weight class. But I do think that Justice Torres is the better boxer out of the two. This is a very low confidence pick because Torres has taken the fight on 1 week's notice. And as I said, normally I would have seen the fact that Torres got completely shut down by Cameron Graves, and that would probably spur, I guess, is that even the word that would make sense? It would kind of steer the direction of my sort of analysis towards the Reyes side. However, we're fading Awesome today because that hasn't worked in the past. I'm going to be picking Justice Torres despite this loss to Cameron Graves. I think he is just the better boxer. I think he even is the better wrestler. I think it just kind of comes down to the BJJ threat of Reyes. So I'm going to be picking Torres here as a plus 165 underdog. And now we can move up to the ladies fighting here. I am just going to be straight up transparent and honest with you guys. This isn't a very high level fight. Now, there is a very good chance actually that this is going to be probably the most entertaining fight of the night because both of these ladies do have the ability to just throw down and brawl, especially Sofia Montenegro, just because I did see significantly more tape from her than I did out of Chaves. In fact, I saw literally nothing out of Chaves, really, but we'll get to that. Montenegro was formerly a very hyped up prospect, and then she lost in 10 seconds, and it was a pretty bad 10-second KO loss, I will admit. The way that she used to fight, and despite her not really fighting really anyone good, was she would just run forward and just throw combinations like crazy. And she was knocking these girls out. She got knocked out herself by doing that. And since then, she has started employing a much more patient game plan. And I think against Damara Vargas, she actually kind of looked like she has a lot of potential, and she leveled up her game quite significantly. However, there's still something that scares me a lot, and that is this performance against Aniela Perez. Against Aniela Perez, Perez was beating her on the feet. Very scary stuff. And the way that Montenegro needed to win that fight was to take her down. And to be fair, like you could say, oh, that means that she's got a good, well-rounded game. It means that she can wrestle and grapple offensively. This is still a girl that at the time had a losing record and only 3 fights of professional experience. She probably shouldn't have been going to a close decision with her. Not even that long ago either. But against Vargas, her boxing technique looked really solid. It did look like she still was showing the terrible striking defense. She doesn't move her head. But the boxing combinations were there, man. Like, the technique was pretty solid. Towards the end of the fight, when she was gaining a bit of confidence, she started lighting up Vargas with combinations, even mixing some of these boxing combinations to the body. And I think, despite that not being the highest level opponent, I think that was a good performance for her. As for Jeisla Chaves, I don't really know how to feel about her, to be honest with you. She's 5-0, but this level of competition might genuinely be some of the worst competition I've ever seen. And I have seen some padded records before. This is amazing to me that this even happened. You know, she has never fought anyone in her 5-0 career with a win. And a lot of these girls actually had losses. She didn't even fight debuting opponents. She fought girls with 0-2, 0-4 records. And a lot of these fights are for Gomez Fighting Championship. And if you look into Gomez Fighting Championship, what is the name of the gym that she trains at? Is Gomez Fight Team. And I do believe that this is a promotion kind of that builds up this gym's fighters. So that kind of scares me a little bit too. However, the thing about Chaves is, despite me not really being able to see much, I did watch her most recent fight, is she has a Muay Thai base, and it does look like she's got some good wrestling ability as well. The problem is I just couldn't really find much more than that. I actually could find a lot of amateur Muay Thai belts. I'm going to assume they're amateur Muay Thai because they were wearing like helmets and shin pads in some of these fights. Some of them, they were wearing elbow guards. So maybe they were professional Muay Thai belts. I'm not 100% sure. But I did watch some of those as well. And a lot of those fights were very low volume sort of fights where she'd close the distance into the clinch and kind of attack her opponents in the clinch. So she's probably quite strong in that area. But I just saw a lot more out of Sofia's game. I think I've talked about this fight for too long, considering there's really not much to go off of. You've just got to roll the dice. So I think that Sofia Montenegro is going to win. She is minus 180. I just saw way more tape on her. I think her boxing offense is good. Her striking defense, I should clarify again, is really, really bad. So if she does go out there and get knocked out by Chaves, I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised, honestly. But we can move on to a very high-level fight. And a fight which I think is going to be very split. I think there's going to be a lot of people picking Brahyan Zurcher. I think there's going to be a lot of people picking Murtazali Magomedov. And here's the interesting part about this fight. Now, as you guys know, I do talk with a lot of people kind of about the fights and, you know, kind of do discuss my opinions on fights and stuff like that. And when people were asking me about this fight before I had done my tape study, I was kind of saying that I think that the UFC probably wants Magomedov to win this fight because Brahyan Zurcher is actually a guy that the PFL invested quite a lot in. He went 5-0 for the PFL. They fed him a lot of sort of guys so they could build him up as a prospect. And even for a period of time, they even let him do a little bit of record padding at Luke's Fight League as well. But he is a guy that went 5-0 for the PFL. So I was kind of thinking they're going to bring Murtazali Magomedov over to make Zurcher and the PFL look bad. And then I did my tape study. And two things stood out to me. The first thing is that Zurcher is a lot better at striking than I remember him being. I did think that his striking was a little bit iffy. It is quite good. He does mix in combinations well. He's coming off a brutal knockout win as well over Julian Ruiz. And the way that he wins a lot of his fights, surprisingly, is he mixes in a lot of wrestling. Now, there isn't really much sort of tape out there of him having to defend significant amounts of takedowns. Probably the most wrestling-heavy fight defensively for him is against Scotty Stockman. And I will admit, this is a win that hasn't really aged fantastically given the fact that he did need to grapple a lot in this fight because Scotty Stockman is a guy that, you know, he fought very regularly against not great competition, but then when he started to take on good grapplers, he started getting subbed. And he's got 5 first-round submission losses, and Zurcher went life and death, and well, didn't. That's not right. That's not correct. But Zurcher was scrambling very heavily against Scotty Stockman in moments there, against a guy that kind of has proven that he doesn't have elite grappling ability. And I would consider Murtazali Magomedov to have elite grappling ability. He is massive for this weight class. I know they don't have a height listed, but his promotion octagon has him listed at 5'10", 5'11", 182 centimeters tall. That's big. That's really tall for this weight class, and he is a lot bigger than a lot of his opponents. Like, he made this Beksaltan Talai Ulu guy look 5'4". I'm not even kidding. But the thing about that really shocked me was how exposed his striking was against Claudesi Brito in his last fight. His striking looked slow. It looked like he didn't have much striking defense, and he got really caught badly in that first round. More than once he got dropped, he got rocked. Brito even caught him in a guillotine as well in the first round, and, you know, Murtazali Magomedov really had to survive that round. And against Sardor Kudabodiev here, he struggled to kind of really get in his wrestling going, get in his game going, and he actually ended up needing to win this fight with a submission off of his back after he fell into bottom position against Sardor in this fight. Against Ulan Tamgabayev, this fight was interesting to me because Tamgabayev was actually able to take him down multiple times. So that was also another interesting look because Zurcher is going to be wrestling in this matchup. So the thing about Magomedov is, I've only really talked about the negatives. I need to talk about the positives for a second. He has, like, insane ability to recover from bad positions. He's got a very good get-up game. I never saw anyone be able to hold him down. Now, yes, he's been taken down by multiple opponents. I mean, even Talayulu got him in a pretty good takedown at one moment. It wasn't much, but it was something. He just gets up very quickly after that. And the thing is, once he gets in top position, very, very good ground and pounds, but incredible ability to get into submission positions. This is a triangle choke off his back. You don't see those every day really anymore. No one really gets caught into those. Caught Tamgabayev in an arm triangle towards the end of the fight, in a fight which was pretty heavy wrestling pace. And, you know, I thought his cardio looked decent in this fight, but the thing is, his cardio looked quite bad against Brito and Kondratavicius because this kind of looked like he was slowing down a bit in the second round. He did catch Brito with a big knee in the clinch and then kind of ground and pounded him out from there. But I will say, I was surprised about Magomedov. I thought that he didn't look great on tape when he looks incredible when it does come down to just numbers on a page, really. So, for that reason, the way that I think that this fight goes is Magomedov either just submits Zurcher in the first round and makes me look like a total idiot, which could happen, or Zurcher is able to survive round number 1 against Magomedov, maybe even get a takedown of his own against Magomedov and really just kind of tire Magomedov, because I do believe that the weight cut, potentially it's the weight cut, or maybe it's just cardio in general, for Magomedov is lacking. And if Magomedov even does win round number 1, I think Brahyan Zurcher is a guy that has shown pretty good cardio and can push in round 2 and round number 3. So I'm going to pick Zurcher to win this fight by decision based on round number 2 and round number 3, as I think that Magomedov is going to slow down. And this is another fight, actually, that I got the BetSam onto. And just so you guys know, BetSam is picking Magomedov. So if you wanted to fade me and kind of go with him, he's gone with Magomedov. But I am locking in Brahyan Zurcher for the reasons that I did say earlier. Now, Dani Barbir is fighting against Mantas Kondratavicius. And this is another fight which I did recruit BetSam's assistance on, because I really do think that this could be another Iwo Baraniewski situation where Dani Barbir looks like the more talented guy, but Mantas hits hard enough that he could just knock him out in 30 seconds. Genuinely, that was my concern, and that is why I wanted another opinion on this fight. Dani Barbir looks like he passes all of the tests. He has very solid boxing technique for a guy at 185 pounds. He fights behind a jab a lot, even double jabs a lot, which you just don't see at this weight class really ever. And another thing that he's got is a very sort of natural grappling ability. The problem that I have with Barbir, and this is a question that I have not been able to find an answer to at all, is the inactivity. You know, he did fight, you know, relatively on and off a while ago, and then he did take on the 3 best opponents he's ever fought, 2024, 2023, 2022. I don't necessarily know why he was inactive in this period of time. Maybe it was like a promotion thing because he was the champion and the promotion couldn't find guys to fight him. I'm not too sure. But I don't love the inactivity from Dani Barbir in the situation, just kind of given the fact that he does have a very big hole in his game, which someone like Mantas Kondratavicius could definitely exploit. Barbir's chin is up in the air, man. It is. He does kind of fight with his chin looking up a little bit, and I do believe that he's going to be the shorter fighter in this fight, and that's probably going to accentuate that even more. But the thing about Barbir is, as I said, I think his technique looks really good. He's really aggressive. He's got very natural grappling instincts, and I do think that he does have solid enough wrestling to potentially take down Mantas Kondratavicius, which I think is probably his path to victory. I think that the path to victory for Barbir is actually in the grappling, because he's not just taking on like any random dude in the striking. Mantas Kondratavicius does have a professional kickboxing background. He's got some ridiculous kickboxing highlights where he's been getting some pretty nasty knockout victories. And then aside from that, we have seen him get some even more nasty knockout victories. I mean, against Michael Chamu, I believe that this knockout actually went quite viral because the way that he knocked out Chamu, he caught him. Then Chamu almost had like a delayed face plant KO. Like it was pretty bad. And it was probably that really got him the shot. And then you can see him also get these 6-second knockout against an 0-6 opponent is crazy. But yeah, even against Jack Combi as well, this fight was an interesting one. He did finish it off with a bunch of knees in the clinch, really against a very gassed out Combi, but he was gassed out as well in round 2, so maybe the cardio himself isn't fantastic. So, as I said, I don't know if I really broke down this fight really well, sorry, but Barbir is like a well-rounded boxer, but he does have a weakness with his chin up in the air, and Mantas Kondratavicius is a kickboxer who is very big for the division, and I will say his takedown defense is quite good. His loss to Virgil Organ is due to the wrestling and the grappling, but Organ, in my opinion, is a much better wrestler and grappler than Barbir is. So yeah, the inactivity of Barbir does give me some pause, but I do believe that this is a case where Dani Barbir is the more talented fighter, and for that reason, I am going to pick Dani Barbir. I do think he's the better fighter out of the two. Now, I have done that in the past, and, you know, the fighter has lost. Most recently, Ali versus Iwo, even though I was originally on Iwo. But I think that there's a chance that Mantas knocks him out early, but I'm going to be rolling with Dani Barbir. I think he's better. I think he's got more ways to win, and I'm going to be picking him to take this fight here. Probably actually by submission. I think I might lock in that option for him. So let me know what you think in the comments below about this card. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I going too crazy? Probably. But that's just Contender Series for you. We don't have too many more weeks of Contender Series to go in 2025.